Hello, and we're back, and we'll talk about Perl references. This is in preparation for talking about Perl classes, which is in preparation for finishing up Perl and moving on to Python. Okay, so to get started, a reference to Perl is like a pointer in C and C++, and some of you've got some fond memories of that. A reference is actually a scalar that represents a memory location. Need to keep that in mind. If you're really going to get complicated in Perl, you need to use references because you need to, if you're using arrays and hashes. Okay, the value stored in a reference is a memory address. This is where you can actually find the value you're looking for. Best thing I can reference that I can relate that to is I work for a huge company, and it's scattered across several states, and one of the things I found is that it takes me about talking to about 10 people to talk to the person that I need to. I'll talk to one, he'll give me a reference to another. He'll give me a reference to another. He'll give me a reference to another. And the finally reference, I actually talk to the person I need to talk to. Okay, references are kind of indirection. That's a very common form of abstraction in computer science. Sometimes you have to back off and have things at the next level of abstraction. Sometimes you don't. Okay, we got the good old foo bar here. You got $foo bar is you got a $foo. Okay, and that's something. Okay, bar is /$foo. Bar would actually be something that would look like a numeric. It'd look like a hex. And that is, if you can go into a computer's memory and walk down the streets and find that particular address, that's where you'll find something living there. Okay, the $sign in this case is dereferencing the reference. So we use the $sign when we dereference a scalar. We'll use something else for arrays and things of that nature. Okay, they say a reference can also reference another reference, dereference, and you can do that several times, and it'll be just like I said with the 10 people that you had to talk to find out the actual value. Okay, reference itself is always a scalar even when it's not referencing a scalar. If it's referenced in a hash or an array, it is still a scalar itself. Now, if you want to reference a named array, you can dereference it using the @ Okay, here's some pets. Don't know if I'd like these pets myself, but anyway, if you want to refer to those pets, okay, this reference, you got /@pets. Okay, @pets is the array / okay, you have the dereference in there. You're dereferencing the @ okay, and when you print this out, it will print out camel snake. Now remember, $sign reference is it's a memory location. It is a scalar itself. Okay, and just to make things really interesting, an array can also contain references, even a reference to itself. My advice is don't do that unless you got a really good reason to do it. Okay, there's a thing called an anonymous array, which you kind of create on the fly. This is an anonymous constructor. And you notice we have a $sign reference here for that. Okay, and if you want to refer to a particular element of that, you would use the arrow operator. Again, you can multi-dimensionalize arrays in Perl. Make sure that you got a good reason for doing it. Okay, a hash, remember a hash is a key in a value. You can use a %. And here again, another way that you can dereference something if you have to. Okay, the value in the hash key's always got to be a scalar, but this scalar itself can be a reference. Okay, you can also dereference and reference a name routine, and I'm just going to stop right here and tell you that this is pretty much going to be beyond the level of this course. This is to give you some idea of the things you can do in Perl. And if you are referencing and dereferencing a name subroutine like this, take a look and see if you really need to do what you're doing. You can also do the same thing to an anonymous subroutine. See above comment. Okay, a closure is where you reference an anonymous subroutine that has what we call a lexical or a local variable, and you can actually pull out that variable after you would expect it to have gone away. And you can have several closures going on at the same time, and they can have the same local variable. Okay, ref function tells you if an argument is a reference or not, and it can tell you any of the type of references. Okay, symbolic references, you have to not use the strict. The use strict, you can't use that. Okay, that should tell you something if you have to set one of your safety lines off. If you have something that for some reason that you have to read in variables dynamically from strings or something like that, you can use this, but otherwise leave it alone. Okay, let's take a look. This is the scalar ref.pl. This is one of the examples in Notepad. I'll just stop here and parenthetically say that all of these example codes have to do with references. You notice you have your hash reference like we talked about, your array references, you got an example of that, you got a reference of a sub or an anonymous subroutine. So if you're curious about learning more about these, here you go. Alright, very basics. Alright, I'm going to say my is idea of a local variable. This is my variable. This isn't some global variable I'm going to pass around. Okay, I'm so going to say it's 10. Okay, fine. Well, $RA, I'm saying that is a reference to that. Okay, if I dereference that and make sure I include a hard return, it'll tell me 10. Okay, in this case I don't need to have the brackets. Now I change this value to 10. Where it's pointing to changes to 20 because you put something else in that house. Okay, so here we have RA is a reference to a reference to a reference to A. Kind of like spelling Mississippi and banana. The key is to know when to stop. Alright, then you end up with some scalar here that ends up being a hex number because that isn't an address. Okay, you dereference it again, you just get a scalar. Dereference it again, you get a scalar. These are 3 memory address. These are those, out of the 10 people at corporate, these are the 3 people that are pointing me to somebody else for it. And this is finally the person. Now, what's really interesting on this is that if you actually run this code, which I did, and it's being shy on me, hang on a bit here. I ran this code. Notice this that they say this turns out to be 10. Well, it actually turns out to be 20 because you changed it up here, and it still remembers it if you run it all as one shot. Okay, you can do that literal. Literal is the number 100, as in more than 99. Okay, you have a location here. Now you say 100 again. You could put it. You actually put it into another address. It's the same exact number, but it's a different reference. It's the same exact number, but since it's a different location, you actually put it's actually in a different it's actually got a different address. I'm sorry. Since it's a different variable, this is R1, this is R2, you got a different variable, different address because it's a different place. And that's what happened when you ran those. Okay, when you dereference them, both of them are same thing, same literal variable, literal, but they're different addresses. Okay, so that's the end of our discussion on references.